would continue to moderate pressures on the domestic. The MPC noted the improvements in the financial stability indicators, including non-performing loans, capital adequacy and liquidity ratios of the deposit money banks. It urged the bank to sustain its surveillance over the banking system by taking prompt corrective measures to further improve stability in the system. The committee also called on the fiscal authorities to build significant buffers to strengthen the efficacy of monetary policy. Overall, the Monetary Policy Committee considered the options of either to loosen, hold, or to tighten. The committee continues to hold the view that although loosening would encourage the flow of credit to the real sector, help in reduction of the aggregate cost of credit and spur business spending and investment, thereby reinforcing the CBN's support for output growth and economic recovery, it however believes that doing so would reverse more rapidly the gains of price and exchange rate stability achieved so far, given the liquidity impact. The ensuing liquidity will exert pressure on the exchange rate in the light of increased capital flow reversals arising from monetary policy normalization by the US Fed. This will further depress the capital market. As for tightening, the MPC holds the view that while tightening will strengthen the stability of the foreign exchange market because of its dampening effect on the demand for foreign exchange, it was however convinced that this would simultaneously dampen investment growth, widen the output gap, depress aggregate demand, and weaken output growth. The MPC recognizes the fact that it had held the policy rate and other policy parameters constant over the last several meetings. Committee underscores that by holding its policy positions constant over this period, it has confidence in the various policies and administrative measures deployed by the bank, which have resulted in the moderation in domestic price levels and stability in the foreign exchange rate. Thus, a hold position is an expression of confidence in the policy regime, given the gradual improvement in both output growth and price stability. On this premise, the downward risks to growth and upside risks to inflation appears contained. Committee's decision. In the light of the above, the MPC decided by a vote of all 11 members present to hold. In summary, the MPC voted 1 to retain MPR at 14%, 2 retain the asymmetric corridor at plus 200 and minus 500 basis points around the MPR, 3 retain the CRR at 22.5%, and 4 retain liquidity ratio at 30%. I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Governor. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Hello there. It's good to have you join us on Health Options. Every day, everywhere, consumers reach for self-care products to help them through their common health problems. They do so because it may be easier for them, most cost or efficient, or they may not feel their situation merits making an appointment with a healthcare professional, or simply may have few or no other options. This edition of Health Options is taking a look at self-medication, defined as the treatment of common health problems with medicines, especially those designed and labeled for use without medical supervision and approved as safe and effective for such use. You will get to know about the real dangers of self-medication, as well as understand the different forms of self-medication so you can avoid the risk of adverse reaction. It's Health Options, and you sure have a lot to gain from the topic through the complementary segments talking about Nature's Corner and our health tips. Welcome. I am Rabi Abdullah. for self-medication are often called non-prescription or over-the-counter OTC and are available without a doctor's prescription through pharmacies. We fed this report on self-medication put together by Lynn Leneke.
According to medical rules, drugs are supposed to be prescribed by experts before being purchased at pharmacies and chemists. It is also part of the rules that pharmacists and chemists are supposed to demand for prescriptions before selling to intended individuals. One of the reasons for this is to checkmate the abuse of drugs, which is common in the society. This rule, which is strictly observed in developed countries, is said to have saved many lives and promote good health. However, it is very common to find people administering drugs on themselves, especially when they have mild health conditions without expert's prescription.
I once in a while do that, especially when it's just maybe minor headache that could result from stress.
My daughter was actually having some malaria symptoms, and we bought her malaria drugs and they didn't work. So we went to the hospital to check, and it was not malaria, it was something else.
Sometimes I do. But the thing is, probably, maybe I was sick before, they gave me some drugs, I've become better, then suddenly that sickness came up again. The self-medication is that I go back to that drug I took before without an examination.
But what is the medical doctor's opinion on self-medication?
All drugs are dangerous and can only be used for the indications they are meant for. And usually it's a clinician that would know what drugs suit certain health conditions. So it's always better to get a doctor's prescription. However, if somebody has a headache or a mild ailment, you can use things like paracetamol, for that. It is only when the condition persists. So in that wise, one can self-medicate for minor complaints.
Research shows that self-medication can pose potential risks to patients. These risks include incorrect self-diagnosis, delay in seeking medical advice when needed, to mention but a few.
You may not know the right doses for these drugs. So if you go buy it for yourself, you might get a lower dose, or you might get too high a dose, causing toxicity. If one gets a lower dose, even if it is for the right ailment, but you're not using the proper dosage for it. Let's say, for instance, somebody needs 2 tablets 4 times a day, but the person is only taking 1 tablet twice a day. Now, what it will mean is that it will drive resistance to these drugs.
Administering drugs on self, medical experts say, can also lead to death. What are the right steps to follow when one falls sick? There is no doubt that self-medication is dangerous and must be avoided.
Joining me in the studio to shed more light on the topic is the chairman, Association of Community Pharmacists of Nigeria, Abuja branch, Sunday Ike. Welcome to Health Options.
Thank you, the presenter.
Okay, the focus is self-medication, and we all know that, or it's been said out there that the menace of drug abuse actually begins with self-medication. As an expert, what have you got to say to that?
Well, from the name, it's almost self-explanatory. That the medication are used to either cure, treat, or prevent medicines. So by self-medication, we mean an individual behavior where a person decides on his own, without a medical expert's opinion, to use drug for either curative or behavioral change without an expert's opinion.
So what are some of the positive effects of that?
Well,
how dangerous is self-medication?
It is actually very, very dangerous. To start with, the person self-medicating might think he is helping himself or herself. He might think he's saving cost. He might think he doesn't want to waste time in the hospital or at a sparse place. But the overall interest, the overall effect is that the person is actually doing more harm to himself than good. If you recall, drugs are meant to solve a problem, and every drug you take is metabolized in the system. And if you notice, when you are advised to take a drug, normally they will tell you to take certain quantity at certain time for certain purposes. So when person, maybe from previous experience, decides to now on his own take the drug, he might not be treating the actual thing. He might be masking the symptom. He might be masking the symptom. Take, for instance, common cold, or somebody has a cough or something. It's a symptom of something. So, except the case is properly diagnosed, and then adequate treatment given. If the person can go because he has, when he had this experience before, this was what worked for him, it doesn't apply. Because you discover that there could be drug-drug interaction. There are certain drugs, when you are taking it, you are not supposed to take certain type of food. And it's only an expert that will tell you, when you take this drug, do so and so. But when one now on his own decides to take that drug, he might not observe that certain drugs should be taken at a particular time. And when you don't take that drug without expert's opinion, one, you might actually prolong the time of treatment. When you delay so much, it will lead to death. There could be organ damage. There are certain drugs that should not be taken together, but because this person doesn't know, the person is just taking it. And because he worked for Mr. B, does not mean it will work for A. Okay. A drug that one person reacts to, another person might not react to it.
So as experts, a lot depends on you in terms of sensitization now. I know, for instance, I've mentioned it out there that if one is treating malaria, you're not supposed to take vitamin C-based fruits. But not everybody seems to be aware of that. How do your members inform consumers, for instance, when they go to your pharmacies to purchase these drugs? What sort of questions are you supposed to, ask? Or what sort of enlightenment do you normally give to consumers? Because, for instance, they're already indulging in self-medication, which is not right, and compounding it, with more ignorance on what could happen when you don't give out information. Do you do that?
Okay, that's why we advise people to always patronize the registered premises. When you want to take drug prescribed by a doctor, always ask to see the pharmacist. Because the pharmacist is not just there to dispense the drug. The pharmacist is there to direct you, to inform you, to tell you what and what you should take, when to take it, and when not to take it. That's actually the work of the pharmacist. And we, on our own, we do sensitization program through our various zonal forum. We have, apart from the association itself, we have zones. And the zones from time to time have sensitization program to tell people, for your drug information, consult an expert, who in this case is a pharmacist. So when you go to a pharmacy to buy a product, always request to see the pharmacist. And he owes you as a duty to explain to you what and what you are going to expect when you are taking this drug. Mind you, there are some drugs that you will take, and there will be a reaction. You can take a drug and the color of the urine will change. So you need to advise this patient that this drug you are taking, when you take it, the color of your urine might change. If it changes, don't be worried. Because the overall effect is that the patient should take the drug, the normal quantity. If the such advice is not given and the person takes the drug, the person must stop midway. And if you stop midway, there could be resistance, and the drug will no longer work for the person. So what we do is to advise people to always contact a professional, in this case a pharmacist, who will counsel you, tell you what to take and what to take. Remember, you mentioned that when you are taking a malaria drug, you're not supposed to take a vitamin C and other plasma expander, because you want to treat
such as what now? What are those?
Blood tonic.
Okay.
That has a folic acid.
Can you be more elaborate on this? Because we want to use this platform to really talk to viewers who might not have the opportunity of being educated on this when they go out there to purchase drugs. Because self-medication exists, and I know that for developed countries such as the United States of America, the Food and Drug Agency actually approves self-medication, but they back it up with sensitization. But in an environment such as ours, where such does not exist, we want to use this platform for you to talk to people out there. For instance, when someone is treating malaria, what is he not supposed to take with the anti-malaria drug? What sort of medicines should not be combined? Talking about drug reaction now, or drug interaction, and not adhering to what the dosage. Can you just talk to viewers on that?
Okay, since malaria is what we have rampant,
endemic, yes,
endemic in our area.
Yes.
Let's use malaria for example.
Okay.
If you are taking, the federal government has recommended artemisinin combination therapy.
Yes.
Popularly called the ACT.
Yes.
To treat malaria now. So if you're taking a malaria drug, there's a research that when you take the first dose, say artemether-lumefantrine, 8 hours later, you take the second dose. Then the next day, you now take one morning, one evening, which is 12 hourly. If you miss the 8 hourly interval, of the first day, it affects the efficacy of that product. Because, you know, drug has a binding site, for example. And so, it is documented that the parasite itself, within so and so time in the system, this quantity gets to the parasite. You need to bombard it until you clears it. But if you give the parasite enough time to resist, subsequently, the while you are taking, my life become like a food for the parasite. The parasite is already resistant to it. You will be able to work. Also, there's food-drug interaction. For example, vitamin C that you talked about. There's when you take a drug, it binds to a receptor. If you take vitamin C, for example, with artemether-lumefantrine, vitamin C might be able to get to the binding site first before the artemether-lumefantrine, rendering it useless. Also, when you take a plasma expander, like I was talking about, drugs that helps to build blood volume. You are treating malaria, you want to confine it in an area. If you increase the volume, the site through which the drug has to, just like something is swimming. When you confine it into a place, you get attacked easily. But if you increase the plasma volume, the blood volume, the drug might not be able to reach at a particular point in time. So it's usually better you meet a pharmacist who understands this thing to tell you that you should take this and take it at a particular time. There's actually a reason when they say 12 hourly or when they say 8 hourly. That's a reason for that. I'm still
more particular about this issue of you not taking vitamin C-based fruits when you're treating malaria. I really want you to shed light on that.
Yeah, I just said
what
that,
are those ones?
I just said that.
You know, because I saw yours revolved around vitamin C as a drug or whatever. I'm talking about food.
If you use food that contains vitamin C,
such as
which most fruits, the apple we eat, the carrot we eat, oranges has, the vitamin C will go and bind at a receptor site that the drug you are taking is going to bind to be able to work. So it displaces that drug from that site, rendering the drug useless. In any case, the real effect of the drug you will not get. That's vitamin C. Well, when I talked about increasing the plasma volume,
that's blood tonic.
Blood tonic. Yes. That's why when they give you malaria drug these days, they will advise you to finish the malaria treatment. Then before you start taking your blood tonic. Okay, there are some antibiotics too that interact with malaria drug. Example, the popular one we have is ciprofloxacin. Ciprofloxacin competes for a binding site with the artemether-lumefantrine. So when it's not advisable, in most cases, to take them together. Because if you take them together, it's not as if you won't get the effect, but you will not get the maximum effect that the drug should give you. And therefore, you are wasting resources. You say you will be complaining of treatment failure. Meanwhile, it's not as if artemether-lumefantrine is not working. But you've taken other things that hinders the drug from working optimally.
Would you say there are benefits of self-medication?
Benefits? Well, to the person taking it, he might think he's saving time, but medically there's no benefit. Because when you think you are saving time, you are masking the symptoms of the sickness. If what you are treating is not...
where the former